What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my 2024 March Madness predictions. We have a bracket. It's beautiful. We're going to be going round by round from the round of 64 all the way to the national championship, picking every game all the way until we get a national championship in Arizona. Last year I did pretty good. I had UConn winning it all. That was the first time that I can remember that I got the national champion correct, which is great. Hopefully we can duplicate that for this year. I did very good in the bracket pools last year, so I don't know if I can go back to back here, but we're going to try, and we're going to go round by round, so let's get right into it. Starting in the East region, where we have number 1 seed UConn, best team in basketball all year. Some could argue Purdue or Houston, but I think it's been UConn pretty much the whole way. Tristan Newton, Donovan Clingan, enough said. Stetson, really cool story out of the A-Sun. They have some good scorers, but I like UConn to unsurprisingly get past the round of 64 with ease. Next up, we got FAU on the 8 line, which obviously has garnered a lot of attention. A lot of people think that's way too high for them, that they're thinking they should be like a 10 seed. Some people had them barely in. They're an 8 seed. They're playing Northwestern, a 9 out of the Big Ten. Northwestern obviously led Boo Buie, very exciting team. I think this is going to be a popular one to take Northwestern. I think FAU has been underwhelming all season, but I'm still going to take FAU. I think that pedigree and that experience from last year is really going to shine here. I think this is a close game. I think this is like a down-to-the-wire game. But Northwestern's also banged up. They have a lot of injuries. I'm going to take John L. Davis and FAU, the Owls, to go match up with UConn. Moving right along, 5-12, San Diego State and UAB. UAB obviously won the American. Wasn't expected to be here. I feel like this team isn't as good as a couple years ago when they had like Jelly Walker and they were a popular upset pick. I think a 12-5 matchup as well, if I remember correctly. This time around, it just doesn't feel like it was a cool story. They got the automatic bid. But San Diego State, they just came off a national championship appearance last year. They returned a lot of players. Jaden Ledee, obviously. I don't see how they bow out right away. I know the Mountain West doesn't always perform well in March Madness, but I don't see this defensive gritty team losing to a UAB team that barely got in. Next up, we got Auburn and Yale. Now, this is shocking that Auburn is in the stacked region. Like, they're one of the best 4 seeds. It's kind of crazy that they're in the region with Iowa State, UConn, Illinois, like all these top. I know that's been the complaint by a lot of people with the selection committee, but Auburn taking on Yale. Yale, Ivy League representative, obviously not crazy talented. They're scrappy. I liked actually Cornell to get out of the Ivy League. They didn't. I think Auburn rolls, and so far, so chalk here in the upper portion of the East region. Then we got an interesting matchup, BYU against Duquesne. Duquesne, another one of these automatic qualifiers that wasn't going to be here unless they won their conference tournament. They won the A-10, which the A-10 is seriously down right now. They only had one other bid, which was Dayton. Duquesne is a defensive, scrappy team, kind of slow pace. I didn't really see a lot of Duquesne basketball this year, if I'm being honest, but I'm gonna go with BYU. I like BYU. They have screwed me a few times. Like, I've been pretty high on them, and they kind of lose games where I feel like they shouldn't, or they go cold. They're very reliant on the three-pointer. I think even in a game, if they are not red hot, I still think they can. Duquesne's not gonna run them out of the gym, so I think I like BYU. Then we got Illinois and Morehead State. Illinois just won the Big Ten championship, of course. The tournament. They beat Wisconsin in the finals. They are a loaded team, Terrence Shannon, among others. Morehead State was here last year, I believe, or 2. They've been here before, and I feel like they've had more talented teams. This one kind of under the radar in the Ohio Valley. I think they were the 3 seed in the conference tournament. I think Illinois gets this done no problem. I'd be truly shocked at an upset here. I'm taking all the chalk so far. I'm going to switch it up here. I'm going to go Drake over Wazoo. Technically, this isn't even an upset because Drake is favored, I believe, by 2.5. Washington State, awesome story, fun team. Beat up on Arizona multiple times. Isaac Jones, great player. But Drake, this is final of the year, I think, with Drake. They had a really tough matchup last year with Miami. Obviously, Miami got red hot, made it all the way to the Final Four. Tucker DeVries, this is the year I think that Drake can finally do something and make a little run. It would suck to see them bow out again. I like Washington State too, but I feel like this is finally the year head coach son combo can make it at least out of the first round. I think this is a great 10-7 matchup for the Drake Bulldogs. Moving right along, not much to say about this matchup. South Dakota State, again, a team that's been in the tournament a few years ago, and I think we're much better than they are this year. Iowa State is obviously coming in as one of the most disrespected teams. TJ Otzelberger has done a great job. They won the Big 12. Don't understand. I agree that they should be a 2 seed. I know a lot of people thought they should get that last 1 seed, but the fact that they were like the 8th slotted team and like the lowest 2 seed is crazy. I think they beat South Dakota State handedly. We're going to move down the bracket now into the West region. We got North Carolina taking on either Howard or Wagner. Wagner, of course, the Northeast Conference winner. Howard is back in the dance again. I think Howard probably beats Wagner. Either way, we're going UNC. I think that's pretty easy. UNC, an experienced bunch with RJ Davis, Amardo Bacot. One of the tougher matchups of the first round, and of course, it's the first game of the tournament, kicking off on Thursday. For some reason, as far as I can remember, since I started watching college basketball, not crazy long ago. I think I started watching in like high school. So let's say, I don't know, 8 years, 7 years, whatever. I've always gotten the first game of the tournament wrong. Like every matchup I can remember. Last year, I believe it was West Virginia, Maryland. I was on the wrong side of that. I know Florida, Virginia Tech, Minnesota, Louisville, Colorado State, Michigan. Every matchup that kicks off the tournament, I'm always on the wrong side of. This one kicks off this year, so maybe fade me on this one, but I like Michigan State. This was a team that was obviously highly touted coming into the year. Tyson Walker, A.J. Hoggard, obviously coached by a legend, Tom Izzo. I can't go against them here. I think Mississippi State is really good, really scrappy defensive team, but I have to go Michigan State. I just feel like it'd be such a disappointment. I know they barely made it in by a lot of people's accounts. Some people had them way closer to the bubble, but I like Michigan State to get it done and maybe finally break my drought of picking the first game correct. Next up, we got St. Mary's and Grand Canyon, and this is a tough one. St. Mary's obviously is a really sound basketball team as usual. 5 seed seems high for them. Grand Canyon's been here before. I remember they lost like the Luca Garza team a couple years ago, and they lost to, I believe, Gonzaga last year, and they didn't really compete, I don't believe, in either one of those games. I think they were both double-digit losses. I think this is the year Grand Canyon breaks through. Maybe it's because I'm just not high on St. Mary's, but I think Grand Canyon is a fun team, and I think they can get out. Now, this is a faster-paced team against a slower-paced team. Usually you kind of lean the slower-paced team, which is St. Mary's. They can control the game. But I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go Grand Canyon to shock the Gales and eliminate them in the first round. Then we got, another fascinating matchup here. Alabama against Charleston. Charleston made it in and was, again, a popular upset pick last year against San Diego State. San Diego State, of course, went on to the national championship. Charleston was in that game for a while. Alabama is a fast-paced team, complete opposite of what they faced last year. Charleston facing San Diego State obviously was a bad matchup for them. Here, they can both get out and run. Alabama doesn't play defense, but Alabama has so much talent. They're averaging I think 90 points a game or something crazy. I'm going Alabama. I think this is a way better matchup for Charleston than last year, like I've been saying, but I can't pull the trigger. I'm going to go Bama to beat the Cougars. Next up, another concerning one because I like New Mexico over Clemson, and the reason this is concerning is I feel like everybody is taking New Mexico. Clemson has struggled. They lost to Boston College, Miami, I think. They lost to so many bad teams down the stretch. PJ Hall is amazing, but New Mexico is red hot. They won the Mountain West. They wouldn't have gotten in according to the committee, which is crazy, if they hadn't won their conference tournament. I am all in on New Mexico and their great guard play. I'm just worried because everybody seemingly is taking New Mexico. We're going to roll with it. And then we got Baylor over Colgate. Colgate is in it every year and they lose every year, and I think this is a much worse Colgate team than we've seen in years past. And then we got Dayton and Nevada, an interesting 7-10 matchup. The Flyers were obviously, they had aspirations to be a much better seed in this tournament at the beginning of the year. Obviously, they have Deron Holmes, who is an NBA prospect. Nevada, another Mountain West team that can you trust, can you not? I was originally going to take Nevada, but I'm actually going to give Dayton a shot, even though they have looked pretty bad at times, and especially in a Week 8-10, it's a little concerning. But I got Dayton. And I think they're going to play Arizona, who will beat Long Beach State, who fired their coach and yet made the tournament. I'm sure you've heard about that crazy story by now. So there's my West. So far on this left side, we got a lot of higher seeds in the East. Drake, the only technically, a lot of lower seeds, I should say. Drake, the only technical upset, but it's really not an upset, like I said. And then we got a few higher seeds in Michigan State, Grand Canyon, New Mexico, making it out in the West out of the first round. So let's move up to the South region, where we got number 1 seed Houston. Obviously another great Kelvin Sampson team. I think they'll beat Longwood, who again has had better teams. I think like last year in the tournament or whatever it was when they played Tennessee. I think this is a worse version of them. They had a 5 seed in their conference tournament. So I like Houston to advance, no issues. And then we got a fascinating matchup. Nebraska and Texas A&M. Now, Nebraska is, first of all, has never won a conference or a March Madness game, which is interesting. They have the Japanese Steph Curry and Kisei Tominaga. This is a really interesting team. I was originally on Texas A&M because I think they're a better overall team. They're a great offensive rebounding team. But I switched late, and I'm going Nebraska, maybe just because I think they're a more fun story, and I'm getting swayed a little bit. But Texas A&M is not a tremendous team. They weren't even going to be in the tournament until they did a lot of work at the late end of the season. I'm going to give Nebraska a shot here. I think this is going to be a coin flip type game, but I'm going to roll with the Cornhuskers. Then we got Wisconsin and James Madison. Now, one of the most fascinating matchups of the first round. Everybody and their mothers on James Madison here, and I just can't do it. I got Wisconsin. I like A.J. Storr. I like Chucky Hepburn. I think they went through that brutal stretch where they were like 3-8. They were losing to everybody. James Madison obviously had a 31-win season, but I just don't think. I think when everybody's on an upset like this, and Wisconsin's being really doubted, nobody's taking Wisconsin seriously. They just made the Big Ten championship game. I just think that I'm going to trust, despite the shaky stretch, with the Wisconsin Badgers to beat the Sun Belt champion James Madison Dukes. This is a tough game. It's a scary game, but we're going to roll with the Badgers. And we got another one that I could definitely see ending in an upset. The Vermont Catamounts, the 13 seed, against the Duke Blue Devils, Kyle Filipowski. They're kind of a so-so. I'm feeling so-so about Duke entering this tournament. I don't feel like they're going to make a deep run. I also think they'll do enough here to beat Vermont. Vermont is another one under John Becker, dominating the America East for years. Always in the tournament, can never win a game at this point. They haven't won, I believe, since 2005. Check that. I think it's something like that. They just never win in the tournament, despite having really good teams. And I think, again, this is a lesser Vermont team, despite they have a better seed than last year. They were the 15 last year against the 2 Marquette. But I think Duke is going to win by like 5 to 10. I think it'll be close, but I think Duke gets it done. Next up, we got Texas Tech, which I think might be one of the most underrated teams, led by Pop Isaacs, fun player. They're playing NC State. NC State obviously won, you've heard it by now as well, 5 games in 5 days. They won the ACC tournament. They were not going to sniff the tournament unless they went on that crazy run. They beat Duke. They beat North Carolina. They beat Virginia. They beat all those teams to get here. They have DJ Horn and DJ Burns. They're obviously a very likable team, but I like Texas Tech a lot, and I think they are a very underrated team to maybe make a little run. They have done this in years past. I think they could go on a run here. Next up, Kentucky and Oakland. Oakland led by head coach Greg Kampe, 40th season, hats off to him. I really wanted to take Oakland before the tournament came out. Before the bracket came out, I really wanted to zero in and maybe get Oakland through to the next round. Trey Townsend and company, very fun team. But Kentucky's a tough matchup. I have to go Kentucky. Kentucky has NBA talent on the floor. Antonio Reeves, Reed Shepherd, and Rob Dillingham, all tremendous players. They're just loaded. I can't take them to bow out right away. Although, that's an interesting matchup in the round of 32. We'll get to that. Next up, the Gators of Florida, who kind of came on stronger at the end of the year. They can score with anybody. They did lose their big man, but I still think they'll get past either Colorado or Boise State. I'm leading Colorado. Colorado is a really good team. They also have NBA talent. KJ Simpson's great. I just don't think this is a tough matchup. Because if Colorado gets through, I was originally thinking Colorado could sneak past Florida, but I'm going to go Gators. But that is an interesting matchup to look for in the first round. Here it was, Marquette and Western Kentucky. I was going to pull the trigger on Western Kentucky, but I couldn't do it. I'm going Marquette. I'm not too high on Marquette. I like the Big East, but out of the 3 teams I get in from the Big East, I don't like Marquette nearly as much. Tyler Kolek has been injured. Cam Jones is great, but I just don't think this team has the makeup to go really, really far in the tournament. No disrespect to Shaka Smart's crew. I gave them the respect enough to beat Western Kentucky, but if Western Kentucky ends up winning this game, I'm going to be so disappointed because I really considered that to pick a 15-2 here, but I just couldn't do it. The final region of the first round here, we got the Midwest, Purdue against either Grambling State or Montana State. Montana State, another one of these teams that have had better teams in years past. I think they beat Grambling, but Purdue, I don't think this year is going to get upset in the first round. They better hope they don't, because that would be brutal for that program and that fan base. And we got the Aggies of Utah State and the Horned Frogs of TCU. Now, this one is tough. Another 8-9. I'm going to go against my better judgment. I'm going to go Utah State, Danny Sprinkle's crew. They won the Mountain West Conference regular season. They bowed out early in the tournament, but I think they will do enough. TCU just doesn't impress me. Emmanuel Miller is good, but they're not like a super dynamic team. I think they've also kind of had better teams previously when they almost beat Arizona a couple years ago. I'm going to go Utah State, although Mountain West versus Big 12 here feels like I might be on the wrong side, but I'm going to trust in Utah State, as I did last year, and I got burned when they played Missouri. Moving right along, the Gonzaga Bulldogs against East State. Now, this is a tough one because everybody is on McNeese, I think, for 12-5s. As far as 12-5s go, I think this is probably the most popular 12-5 outside of James Madison, Wisconsin. And I was looking to probably take McNeese as well, but I think this is such an underrated spot for Gonzaga. They're flying so under the radar. I know I'm getting very chalky here on this side of the board, but I think Gonzaga, Mark Few being under, under the radar, Gonzaga is a little different. They haven't had this in years. I think this could be the year where they could maybe sneak past a few teams when people are picking against them. I'll go Zags. And then Kansas and Samford. Kansas is so banged up. I'm going to go with the 13 seed Samford. They press, they shoot a ton of threes, they go fast pace. They're very fun. I don't know if this is a pick that in my head I'm like, this would be a fun matchup. This would be cool to see Samford win. Or do I genuinely, am I overlooking that? Am I looking past Kansas just because of the injuries? But I'm going to go Samford. I think this does have good makeup of a 13/4, especially with Kansas's current situation. Then we got South Carolina and Oregon. I like Oregon here. Dana Altman, they weren't going to get in unless they won the Pac-12, and they did. And they continue to, he always gets the most out of this roster, and I think they're going to roll past South Carolina. I am not high on South Carolina, no disrespect. They're, I believe, one of the luckiest teams on KenPom, and that's always an interesting factor to look at. I think they are definitely an overachieving squad this year. Yeah, I just am not high on the Gamecocks. So I'm going to go Oregon. Then we got Creighton and Akron, and I love this Creighton team. I think Kalkbrenner, Alexander, and Shireman is a crazy good big three to have in the tournament. You got guard play, you got a big man, you have everything that you can make a deep run. They don't go super deep, they don't have the depth, but Akron shouldn't even really technically be here. Kent State really messed up with that whole foul situation in the conference tournament. I'm going to pick Creighton to beat Akron. I think Akron was more dangerous back when they played UCLA in the first round a couple years ago. Then we got Texas versus the winner of Colorado State and Virginia. A lot of people don't think Virginia should even be here, including myself. I would definitely think St. John's or Indiana State or Pitt or somebody like that should be in Virginia's place. Colorado State also very disrespected to even be in the first four. They should probably have just a regular season, not be in Dayton. But I think Colorado State beats Virginia, but I think Texas just beats Colorado State and advances. And then I got Tennessee over St. Peter's. St. Peter's, amazing story to be back, but I think Dalton Connect and Tennessee, Rick Barnes' struggles in March may continue, but not in the first round. I think they get past the Peacocks. Back up to the top here, round of 32. Got UConn and FAU. Now, this is a fascinating matchup because if FAU plays to their ceiling, which they haven't done all year, they have, I think, the dogs to beat or at least to compete with UConn. I don't see it happening. I like UConn to advance. I think this would just be a scary second-round matchup as far as second-round matchups could have gone for UConn. I think FAU presents a lot of challenges, but I think UConn is the much better team at the end of the day, so I think the Huskies advance. Then we get the Aztecs and the Tigers, San Diego State and Auburn. This matchup, I'm going Auburn. I don't think San Diego State will make a deep run like they did last year, and I think the Tigers are a little bit, not underrated, but Janiah Broome and the guys there, Bruce Pearl, I think he's got them primed for a deeper run. Obviously, they're in UConn's quadrant up here, but I think they have the capacity to make a much deeper run than maybe even some people think. Then we got BYU and Illinois, and I'm going upset here. Again, I can't get away from BYU. I don't know if it's the three-point shooting. I don't know what it is about this team, but time and time again this year, I've been like, this team is dangerous. This team is dangerous. And now they're going up against a Big Ten champion. Big Ten champions haven't done well in years past with this tournament. We saw Iowa bow out early. We saw Illinois bow out early a few years ago. I really think that BYU possesses everything they need to be able to get past a good Illinois team. And then we got Drake and Iowa State, and this is probably the first. I've been pretty tame, I feel like, in this, but not. You don't want to overdo the upsets. I think 4 or 5 upsets in the first round. I think even last year we had some big ones like Princeton, Fairleigh Dickinson. Overall, outside of 8-9s, which aren't really considered upsets, I think there was 5 in the first round. So you don't want to get too crazy with upsets. So I think I've been pretty good in the first round here. But here I'm going Drake. I think Iowa State, I just kind of hyped them up and said they were being disrespected, and here I am disrespecting them a little bit. But it really is no disrespect. I think Drake is this is just a fun team that is primed for a run to the Sweet 16. Drake, Bulldogs, Tucker DeVries, let's go. All right, West Region, round of 32, North Carolina, Michigan State. I'm getting a little crazy here as well. I'm going Michigan State. I can just picture in my head, this feels like a Tom Izzo. I'm not even like a huge Tom Izzo guy. It just feels like a spot where North Carolina, I think, is the by far the most vulnerable 1 seed. I guess you could say Purdue as well, but I just feel like this is a brutal draw for North Carolina. Mississippi State, Michigan State winner in the second round. I think Michigan State can do it. I think their guards can do it. I think they can. I know the inside scoring might be a little shaky, North Carolina with Baycott and everything, but I'm going to go Michigan State. I think they win a very close classic March Madness game. Then we got Grand Canyon and Alabama. Grand Canyon's fun, but I think this is where they bow out. I think Bama, again, if Bama can just play a lick of defense, I think they can really run some of these teams off the court. Charleston obviously has the offensive capability, and so does Grand Canyon, really. But I think Alabama just got to not allow 90 points, and I think they'll be fine because their offense will show up. I'm going to trust Mark Sears and the guys to get to the Sweet 16. Very interesting matchup there, Alabama, Michigan State coming up. And then next up, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to go New Mexico. I know I'm probably a little recency bias here off that Mountain West tournament. I know everybody's on New Mexico, but Baylor doesn't really excite me like years past. Scott Drew's a great coach, but they just don't really feel like a deep tournament. I feel like they have a higher maybe floor, but I don't feel like they have this crazy high ceiling where they can make a Final Four run. So I'm going to go New Mexico. And then I picked Dayton 1 round, but I'm going Zona. I don't have much to say about this. Dayton's not that great. Arizona is susceptible to choke as we've seen in recent years, but I'm going to go Wildcats in that matchup. Back up here to the south, we got Houston, Nebraska. Not much to say about this. I think Houston is just too good for the Cornhuskers. And then we got a fascinating matchup between Wisconsin and Duke. I think, again, a lot of people are out on Wisconsin early, but I think they continue to surprise people and get into the Sweet 16. Again, I haven't been high on Duke, so I think this is a good spot to take the 5 over the 4. And then we're going Texas Tech over Kentucky. I've been saying, I just talked about Pop Isaacs and this Texas Tech team being underrated. This is a very tough matchup because of Kentucky's talent, but Kentucky has done this before where they're a really great team. People, obviously their fan base has crazy high expectations for them all the time, but this is another spot where I feel like they might disappoint, and this is going to be a really fun game if it does indeed happen. But I'm going Texas Tech Red Raiders to the Sweet 16. We got Florida and Marquette, and I kind of, alluded to it. I think Marquette is going to get out early this year, so I'm going Gators, and it's crazy because I don't even love the Gators, but in this quadrant here, I don't really like anybody. Colorado is another team I kind of could see doing it, but I'll go Florida to get past the Golden Eagles. I don't think it's Marquette's year. We got Zach Edey and the boys in Purdue. They better get past another one, and I think they do. I think they beat the Aggies. I think Utah State will be way overmatched in that game. And then that brings us to Gonzaga and Samford, another game that would be so fun. I feel like Samford's going to have, if they do get past Kansas, these fun matchups. But I like the Zags in a year where a lot of people, I think, are going to have them either going out in the round of 64 or the second round. I think Mark Few's squad gets to yet another Sweet 16 like they always find themselves in. And we got the whole former coach thing here, Oregon and Creighton. This is a scary one, or somebody that really likes Creighton, but I'm going to go Blue Jays. Oregon's getting hot, which is scary, but at the end of the day, I think this is another one where it goes down to the wire. I'm going to trust in the rim protection, the fact that Creighton does not foul, and the closing of Alexander Shireman. I think they can do enough to get past the Ducks. Then we got Texas and Tennessee, and I was much higher on Texas entering the year, but I'm going to kind of go back to that here and say they upset Rick Barnes-led Volunteers. This would be really brutal for that program. I understand that. Because of their history and how they keep losing early. And I love Dalton Knecht. I think he's a great player, but I just feel like Texas, Asmus, Dessou, I feel like they can finally maybe, I don't know, obviously they didn't have Asmus last year. I think, obviously guard play winning in March. I know you could say Asmus maybe could put them over that hump. I don't know if they're going to go far, but I think they could make a second weekend. All right, Sweet 16, UConn, Auburn. This would be a great matchup. This would push UConn to the limits, but I'm going to go Huskies. What haven't I said yet? Best team. BYU and Drake, a matchup that I don't think many people will have. I'm going to keep going with BYU. I think I could get really burned on this side. But I'm looking at their path. I really don't think they lose to Duquesne. I think they can absolutely beat Illinois. And then if they do get either Drake or Iowa State, I think they can beat them. So I'm going to go BYU to get all the way to the Elite Eight and play UConn. Then we got Michigan State and Alabama down here in the West. And what a matchup this would be. Tom Izzo, Nate Oates. I'm going to go Bama. I don't even love these offensive-minded teams usually. Yeah, I'm going BYU. Yeah, I'm going Alabama. So it's a little weird. Usually I kind of, refrain from taking those one-dimensional teams, and it usually is a good thing. But I think in this path, I think Bama Look at the bracket they're in right here. Look at the quadrant they're in. They got Charleston, they got the Grand Canyon, St. Mary's. These are all very beatable teams for Alabama. Then we got New Mexico and Arizona. I think this little Cinderella type run for New Mexico ends here. I will go Arizona to kind of, get over their recent years' demons of not being able to get past the early rounds. I think they get to an Elite Eight, take on the Crimson Tide. Then we got Houston and Wisconsin. I think at this point it's like Wisconsin would have battled James Madison, battled Duke. I think they don't have much left in the tank here. I think LJ Cryer and Houston are just too much, so I'm going to go Houston to the Elite Eight, and then Texas Tech and Florida. Again, I kind of was foreshadowing it. I wasn't that high on Florida. I think they just have a pretty good draw, so I'm going to go Texas Tech to the Elite Eight. Moving right down, we got Purdue and Gonzaga. I think this would be a great matchup with Graham Ike and Zach Edey. I think it'll be a really fun matchup, but I think Purdue wins this pretty handedly and moves on to the Elite Eight, where they will play the Creighton Blue Jays, who get past Texas. All right, Elite Eight here. Not much to be said that I haven't already said, so let's just go right through it here. UConn, BYU. BYU's run ends here. UConn is too good. They go to the Final Four and to Phoenix. And then Alabama and Arizona. Two high-powered offenses, two teams that have recently disappointed in previous tournaments. I'm going to go Arizona to get past Alabama. I don't feel great about that, but I think this West region is really wide open. So if they're going to do it, this is the year to do it. I think Arizona gets to Phoenix. And then Houston, I think, is too much for Texas Tech. So we got a 1, a 2, a 1, a little chalky. And then Purdue and Creighton. I was high preseason on them. I'm going Creighton. I don't love Purdue. I know people are comparing them to 2019 Virginia after Virginia lost to UMBC. They lost to the 16th seed. They came back and won it all. Purdue obviously lost to the 16th seed Fairleigh Dickinson last year. I think some people think they're going to do a similar have a similar story play out. I don't see it. I think Creighton ends Purdue's season in the Elite Eight. So we get a Final Four of UConn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton. I think this would be a really fun Final Four. And I think it's an all Big East championship. I got UConn and Creighton. It's crazy. The Big East was disrespected. They only got 3 teams in. I don't even love Marquette. I have them out in the round of 32. But I think these two teams are tremendous. Obviously, it goes without saying with UConn. I think Creighton is beginning to get underrated as people kind of forget about them. I think it's UConn and Creighton, and I'm going to go with the Creighton Blue Jays to win it all. I know that's crazy. I'm a little worried because of, Oregon's dangerous, Texas, Tennessee. They have a tough path, but I don't hate their region. I think it could be tougher. They're avoiding like the Illinois, the Auburns. I think they can get through this little gauntlet here. And if they can get up, play Houston and UConn, I think they're just gonna have to play great, flawless basketball. They already beat UConn. I think they can do it. I'm going Creighton Blue Jays 80-68 in the national championship. The first time ever win the NCAA tournament. All right, so there it is. There's my 2024 March Madness bracket. Hopefully I do pretty well. It's always difficult, obviously, but I do like this bracket. We don't have too many crazy upsets in the first round. We did get a little crazy here, 6-10 in the Sweet 16, a 9-4, an 11-2, a 3-7, a 6-7. But I think in the end we ended up with, only a combined of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total seed lines in the Final Four if you add them up. So nothing crazy in the Final Four this year. I think those are great matchups. We'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Enjoy 2024 March Madness.